They are on the 2 afternoon AM radio stations that play the baseball and football games for the high schools. And they took out a 3-month ad campaign on the radio for high school sports radio. It's a 2-hour block, happens twice a week. That's the only place they advertised online, because they recognized, I want to get in front of those parents, because if I can get one of those parents, they are a circle and they will bring everybody else with them. So they identified where are those people at, because they knew with intentionality who they wanted to reach. And all of a sudden it expanded the room and brought a lot more traffic in the door for that business as a result.
Hey, welcome back to the Money, the Mindset, the Mentoring podcast. And today we have Ryan Holck with us. And Ryan, today we're going to talk a lot about brand and the messaging that's required to create a really good story for your brand. You know, a lot of times when I'm talking to people and they're starting their podcast or they're building out their coaching business and they know what they want to do, but they just aren't able to communicate that effectively. And so this conversation today is really about helping people craft their messaging so that they can then produce it both in person, but as well as, really importantly, in the digital space.
Yep. That is such a challenge for so many business leaders to figure out, how do you take all those complex things you do and talk about it really simply so that anybody can figure it out. And I'm excited to chat about that today.
Now, clarity is one of those things that I think most small businesses, entrepreneurs, even actually, to be honest, large companies really need to work on it. And whether it's clarity around their mission, vision, values, or whether it's clarity around some of their products or their services, clarity just seems like it's not very clear. And so how do we solve clarity?
For me, the biggest challenge or the first step in figuring out clarity has to do with really being honest with ourselves and sitting with a piece of paper or a whiteboard and really saying, who on earth are we as a business? Who are we really, on the best of days, ready to serve? And what are our products and services going to do for them? And get stuff on paper, because I find so often we have conversations with business leaders and they're like, well, I sort of serve people who do these things and we kind of do these things and we kind of do these things. And I don't know how to talk about all of that. And as soon as we put stuff on paper, all of a sudden we go, oh, there's like 3 columns. And all we got to do is talk about those 3 columns of information. We could call those pillars of our business. And those could be the only things you talk about. And you'll somehow touch all of the things you just explained to me. And so the biggest thing for me with clarity is you've just got to be honest with yourself and sit and do the work of, let's document some stuff and start really thinking with intentionality and strategically about how we're going to talk about our business.
Yeah, I think documentation is so important, but I think when you hit on the nail on the head at the beginning was that just get a pen and paper out there and just start writing who we are. And just that sort of brain flow of just, drawing things out or writing things down, doodling it, smiley faces, sad faces, anything that can just describe the things, the emotions that your business creates, the services that you provide, the way that your clients feel, the way you feel, the way that people respond to you, the best or the worst, and just really starting to understand those things and just start getting that brain flow going. I think that is a great way to really start to help people understand who they are.
Yeah, it very much is. And I've got a process that I walk people through either one-on-one or even in a group setting, just to kind of get like the ideas flowing so that you can kind of go, all right, let's talk about like what I call the golden egg in your business. Like, what is the number 1 and the number 2 thing that if they went away tomorrow, your business is gone. But if you like poured fuel on the fire, it would be like the farmer with a golden egg that it just kept delivering in your business. And so often I find with business owners, they're like, we need to talk about everything. And I'm like, you have 2 products that bring in 80% of your revenue. Why are we talking about the other 12?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
now when somebody's looking at their business, and it's funny that you use the term the golden egg, and because the golden egg is a very hard thing sometimes to find. Like, think we just passed Easter a little while ago, and all these kids running around the house looking for chocolate eggs. Well, we're looking for a golden one, which seems so easy to figure out, but I think a lot of people, they have a hard time actually pointing at it because it's not necessarily what it is. It might be what it does or what it represents. And so let's kind of dive into that idea of, you talked about some principles or some methods that you would use to help people flush that out. What would that look like?
So the first thing is I like to make a list of all the current ways that money is currently flowing into your business. How are people actually paying you? Not what are the free services, but actually paying you right now. And to start with a list and really get clear on, even if you've got to pull some numbers, here's the ways people currently, okay, those are great things. What are the ways in the future I hope are the highlighted places that people would pay us for services? And I take a look at those two lists and I start going, where's the continuity here? What do they currently and what's in the future and how are those connected? Because those are the places usually that I want to start my messaging around my brand. Because if I know I'm making some money and it leads to something greater or an upsell or some other option in the future, then that's a place I want to spend time really getting clear on how to talk about that product, that service, the win I'm going to provide for people.
So the number one mistake people make is they don't realize where their money is coming in. And then they don't connect that to the future to say, where would I like it to come in? So they can create that storyboard for where we are today to where we are tomorrow. Because if they don't understand it, how can you expect their client to?
Right, exactly. And when you've got clarity and you can help control the narrative for your client so they understand in moments, then they understand it, but they also can repeat it to others. And all of a sudden, your brand goes further because they understand how you helped them. And then they can turn around and go, hey, they helped me do this in my business. Maybe they could help you as well.
What's another great strategy around helping create clarity in your offer?
I love starting with a clear articulation of your audience and really who it is you serve. And not at a 30,000 foot level, but like, what is it that they're feeling? What are they experiencing? What point in life are they at? And juxtaposing that with how does our product or service help them at that moment? So that I can kind of have this idea of, if I was going to talk to someone about this, I want to explain, here's the problem. Here's how our solution makes life better, and even the win that people get from using our product or solution. Because so often we want to talk about the way our product works. We want to talk about the tasks we do, but really it's the outcomes. The number one thing that people are going to remember is the outcomes that you got for them. So if we can align their needs and the pain points they have with the wins that we provide, all of a sudden they start thinking about our product in terms of the outcomes that we provided, not just the behind the scenes tasks that we did.
Absolutely. I think people need to stop talking about their product and really start talking about outcomes. One of the biggest things that I see is the biggest mistake that salespeople make is they go into a presentation and they go through features, advantages, and benefits. And it's like, look, what people don't want to do is it's just like having a child. You don't want to talk about the labor. You want to talk about the baby. So let's talk about the baby. Let's talk about the outcomes that people are looking for. Now, the baby might be the labor. If you have kids, you know what that means. But the idea, the intent is that you're looking for the outcome, not the process. Because as soon as you start talking about the process, people get confused because they don't know how to solve that process yet. Because if they did, they wouldn't be looking to you to solve it.
Right. And in a lot of businesses, they don't care what the process is.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to know that at the end of the day, my problem is solved and my life is better and I can move on. And that's why it's so important in my mind, really, for us to understand as the business owner what all those things are so that we can talk about it super clear about, how we're going to make their life better, how we're going to make a win.
Yep, absolutely. And, you can save so much time and money on your Facebook advertising, your Google advertising, any of these things, if you can first fix your messaging. It's not about your placement or your ads or your whatever. It's about your messaging and being clear with your messaging and understand what your offer is. Because if you don't know your offer, your client will not know it.
Exactly. And one of the questions that I love to answer in my content and in my copy, especially on a website, is for the client, for the reader, is this for me? I want them to read the language and to see themselves in it and to go, yes, this is speaking to me. I should keep going, or this is definitely not for me and I should move on. And for them to be able to self-assess and know in moments, and us as a business leader, as a business owner, to be okay with the fact that they self-selected out if they did, or to go deeper.
Absolutely. If your campaign goes to and says, I'm looking for one-armed dentist in Milwaukee who love chocolate, this is for you. It's going to do really good for your click-through rate, because the only people going to click through are going to be one-armed dentist in Milwaukee who love chocolate.
Right.
And I don't know what you're going to be selling, but at least you're going to be attracting the audience that's going to be there.
Exactly. And because the story is clear, the people will go along with you and build relationship with you as a result.
Absolutely. The thing is when people are identifying with an offer, for me, they always look through there's a lens of 4 things that they look at. Number 1, they look at, does it solve a pain that I have? And to me, if it's a pain thing, it's going to be the number 1 thing. Look, if I've got my arms chopped off and you come to me and say, Steve, I've got a really great cup of coffee. Would you like one? I'm like, as much as that coffee sounds awesome, my arm's bleeding and I'm losing blood fast. Do you have a tourniquet? I pay anything for a tourniquet right now. And so people buy for pain. The second reason why people buy is for opportunity. This is why, it's in the United States, it's land of opportunity. That right there in itself talks about the number 2 reason why people buy. Number 3 is for community. They want to be surrounded by people, just like the one thing that you do with your group, your cohort that you run. People want to join that cohort. And the last thing is elevated status, is they want to join something that's going to raise them up. People don't pay more for a BMW because it's more reliable. They pay more for it because it's got a higher degree of status.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So now they've got a little bit of clarity around their offer. Now, you talked a little bit about the audience, and I want to get into that as well, because I think knowing the audience as a whole and talking about your clients, but then also talking about them in the aggregate. In other words, knowing about your audience on the many level as well as on the one level. So let's talk about knowing your audience on the many level, because I think if you know that, this is how you can find out things like, where are they? Where do they like to hang out? How do I find them? Because, if they're all hanging out watching the Bills game, well, guess where you're going to go? You're going to go watch a Bills game, and that's where they're going to be.
Yes, exactly. And that's part of why I love to start with documenting it, because I think a lot of the time business leaders think I'm going to spray and pray. I'm going to put as much out there anywhere and hope it hits someone, instead of going, this is a specific. I know they're in this place. An example for you. I am helping a mom and pop, family owned tuxedo formal wear store right now. They know this has been prom season. There's a couple of weeks left. We've built entire campaigns around how do we get in front of students and how do we get in front of parents of high school students. We targeted that we had some specific ads that needed to run to get in front of people, but we also said, where is the other place these students exist? They are on the 2 afternoon AM radio stations that play the baseball and football games for the high schools. And they took out a 3-month ad campaign on the radio for high school sports radio. It's a 2-hour block, happens twice a week. That's the only place they advertised online, because they recognized, I want to get in front of those parents, because if I can get one of those parents, they are a circle and they will bring everybody else with them. So they identified where are those people at, because they knew with intentionality who they wanted to reach. And all of a sudden it expanded the room and brought a lot more traffic in the door for that business as a result.
That's very strategic to do something like that. The first thing when you think I'm going to go and I'm not knocking radio, but the idea that people are going to advertise on radio, most people kind of for high school kids. But then you went, no, it's not the high school kids we're looking for. It's just the high school kids' parents. Yes. And that was the really important thing. It's just like in our mortgage brokerage, right now, I think it's like 67% of first-time home buyers are funded by one bank alone. And it's the bank called the Bank of Mom and Dad. And because mom and dad are the ones who are putting the down payment down for the houses. And so if you have a mortgage company and you're looking at building your business, you should be targeting parents. And because those parents are the people who are going to help the kids make that decision. And they're going to work with somebody that they know, they like, and they trust. So using that model that you just spit out is a beautiful model. And that's a great strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's reproducible if you take the time to figure out who is that audience, where are they at, what are they doing. I've seen people waste so much money over the years doing social ads for people who aren't even on social media. And I'm like, What are you doing? They're on email. Pick up the phone and call them. They're going to answer the phone. They're a group that will. That's how you're going to reach those people. But you've got to know the specifics of who you want to reach. And it's why it's so important to start with documentation and writing it down.
Absolutely. Well, I think anybody who's selling detergent right now should be reaching out to formal wear companies, because if they're selling it to the students, they want to get those suits double cleaned after those prom nights.
You have no idea. You have no idea.
Oh, I do from at least 30. Oh, yeah, we won't go in there.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Yeah. And soon again, my oldest is 14, so I guess that's going to be coming up soon. Yeah. So is there anything else that people need to look at when they're looking at organizing their offer and ensuring that they really understand? Is there a pillar that we're missing when it comes to trying to really get to hone in to understand who they are and how can they present themselves?
The piece that I feel like is missed often is we kind of get an idea of, okay, we know who we're going to talk to. We have an idea of what we're going to talk about. But many businesses, especially on their websites, fail to make a clear call to action that's repeated over and over on their site. A lot of times you'll see it up somewhere in the header. There's maybe a button, there's something. If I read through everything, I may find something, or it's at the bottom of the page. The reality is on websites, people aren't getting to the bottom of your page and they're not reading every word. They're reading headlines. So your headlines are important, but they're also looking for buttons through the body of your content. Because if people start down your page and they're going, hey, this sounds interesting, I think they're talking to me, the majority of website visitors will never scroll back up. They will not go back up to find a button that you put at the top of your page. They need it to be someplace, and they're never going to reach the bottom. So if you want to keep people in your story loop, you've got to offer them ways to act through the length of your copy. So putting it in the middle someplace, any way that you can get someone to take action to continue the conversation, because you want them in a relationship that's conversational. And that's only going to happen if they click a button or they fill out a form or take action for you somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the hero page element of the page at the top and when we talk about that section, that's the section that's viewable when you first get to the page. So whether it's on your mobile, whether it's on the different screen sizes, that's the part that everybody sees. And that's the one that people focus on. But I do agree with you that good copy as you scroll down allows you to action it at any moment. So it's like, it's not the hero section, it's the heroes section.
Yes.
And that really allows people to then action on what they're reading.
Right.
And I think having that scroll down is really important because, there's the people who are have you ever heard of DISC, Ryan? The DISC profile?
The DISC assessment?
The DISC assessment, yeah. I always love the DISC assessment. And anybody who doesn't know that, I would look it up. It's a beautiful tool. But if you know that there's certain types of people, there's the people who just, I want to make a decision, boom, I like it, I don't, I'm there, I'm gone. And they're not going to stick around and they're going to make a fast decision and move. Then there's the other people who want to see that, did other people make the same decision? And they make the herd mentality. That's the I person. They're social. Then the other people saying, is this right? Like I need a little bit more to to feel good about it. You know that this is a stable decision that I'm making. This is something that's going to be reliable. And the last one is I need to know everything, the C's. And they're going to scroll and scroll and scroll. And you have to have like 800 buttons by the time they get to the bottom because they're going to read every single bit.
Right. Right. And those people, when you think about visits, those are 4 categories, but you think about how those are distributed, that maybe is only 20% of people who are going to read every word. Well, that's a lot of websites and a lot of visitors who are never going to get through every word.
Absolutely.
So, man, I better make this thing super actionable. I better keep answering. Yes, you are the right audience. This is the place for you. Here's a little bit about someone else who experienced it too, so that you can see, hey, yes, there's some social proof here. There's some authority. This person actually knows how to solve my problem. They've done this for someone else. It's all super important with how you're going to message about your brand.
Absolutely. And I think the idea of a call to action is really important because I think a lot of times people turn their website into more of an educational facility, not a call to action facility. Like the goal of a website, in my opinion, is not to educate the masses, but it's to get the masses into action. Because the thing is now some people might say, well, that's very greedy. And I'm like, no. That's because I care about my audience. Because if I'm using motivation to get somebody going, motivation is very fleeting. We've all been to those seminars where like, whoa, rah, 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 it's amazing. I'm going to do all this awesome stuff.
Right.
And then I get back and I'm like, I'm going to do it tomorrow because I got to play some catch up. Then tomorrow comes, oh yeah, I got now a little bit more. And then a week goes by and nothing happens. And so the idea about is getting somebody into action is allowing them to actually then benefit from the things that you're talking about, not just have that fleeting moment interaction with your material and then move on to, the war in Ukraine or move on to what's going on with Trump or Biden or any of these other things that kind of distract them or what did the kids break in the kitchen. Right. So, yeah.
Right. And it's also that you need to acknowledge that as you're telling your brand story and as you're messaging your story, that different parts of your story are going to connect in different ways. There are moments when you need to be educational. That's what you have a blog for on websites. That's what you've got FAQ pages for. Like you're wanting people who need the information to find it.
Yep.
But the majority of people leading with that information is going to be like, oh, whoa, you haven't answered my core. Is this even for me? Am I even your audience question? Am I in the right place? I'm not going to give you 10 minutes. You've got 30 seconds or less.
Yep.
So I got to make sure I can articulate it super well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think once you can really figure that out, then you have to start looking, saying, okay, well, how do I ensure that I'm collecting this right?
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about the technology of collecting leads in the right way.
So for me, you've got a couple things that have got to happen. We talked about calls to action already. There are typically people at various levels of commitment when they come to your site. Some of them are just trying to get info. They're just looking. Okay? But others are ready, like they're in the 10 to 15% who are act now, low-hanging fruit. And they need some way to take an immediate first step. So you need to have a call to action that gives them the ability, book a call, schedule an appointment, come and see it in action, something like that they can act on in real time. But you're also going to have a bunch of people in the middle who need more convincing. And so I like to have a secondary call to action, whether it's a contact page or it's get a resource from us that's going to help educate you or inform you or kind of give us an opportunity to get some contact info to follow up with you, whether it's through email, through some sort of call, through a newsletter, something. I just need you on my list. I want you in my CRM so I can do my due diligence and build a relationship with you. So so I want to see what are those two things. And I got to make sure, and this is a place I see businesses struggle, is they're like, okay, I know if we saw them, if they came in the store, I could tell you what I want them to do. How do I translate those online? How do I get people to actually make that connection? And it's the place that I see businesses struggle is they're like, well, in store, we would go through these 18 steps. Well, that doesn't necessarily convey to online. So what is the precursor for that? What tech needs to be in place to make sure that works? How are you going to collect that info? Is it a form? Is it a Calendly? Is it whatever it is? But making sure that you get the tech lined out and automated, because the last thing you need is somebody manually going in, running a report in your website every day. Who came in, who didn't, who's going to follow up. I want to know when that button gets clicked, these 4 things happen magically in the back end. I get a notification and my sales team does what they need to do. And my follow-up guy knows 3 days later what he's supposed to do. And that's why, for me, it's so important that the tech has to be connected properly, because a boring contact form, that's not going to move the bar forward for the majority of site visitors.
Absolutely. I mean, I know for us, a lot of things we do is we integrate an AI element to it so that it's very interactive, so that you can grab information logically through a conversation rather than, form-based and structured in a way that it makes it so heavy for that person to be able to fill it out. Because you're 100% right. There's so many people, what they do is they data laden the first form that it's like they're, the thing is, I always look at when you're building a website, this is the mistake people make, is they don't realize it's actually a sale. Like, yes, you're not getting paid in money, but you're getting paid in data. And so you're getting a commission on the information that you're giving. That commission is the data that you're receiving. And if you start to understand that, you have to value the commission with the information, because the information, whenever you do a transaction, if somebody's going to feel comfortable, they always have to feel like they're receiving more than what they're paying.
Yes.
And so if they're paying with data, they've got to receive more than the data that they're paying. So if you can actually schedule that transfer of knowledge and transfer of commission, which is the data you're receiving, in a meaningful way, so that as you're building up the give, you're building up the give of data, then it feels comfortable and people will move through it all day, every day.
Yeah. And that is why in some industries you see a move away from a traditional form to almost a questionnaire survey that, 2 or 3 steps. I know I worked with a solar industry company for a while, and we went to a real-time bidding kind of process. And the whole plan was, even if they don't get to the end and submit their name and email, we got them far enough through so that they understand our process, who we are, and what our potential price points are. And it gave us then at least enough info to go, where's the friction points? Yeah. Where is the tech maybe working against us, but also gave us enough data that we could go, okay, we at least know we're talking to the right people, or people are asking the wrong questions, which means something's not clear in our messaging, and I maybe need to rewrite that landing page.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is if you're gathering data incrementally, and it's a form that's sort of building up and building up, anytime somebody drops off, maybe again, the kid drops something in the kitchen, or maybe, a big emergency happened down on the shop floor, whatever it is, they just leave the thing, they close it, they run off. That's what drop cart stuff is for in remarketing.
Yes.
Because you can then grab that data, use that data, go back and remarket, get them back into the mindset. Because, I mean, let's face it, this is the distraction generation. And there's just so many other things that's noise that's out there that, while you think your form is the best thing on the planet, and you think that, the thing that you're giving right now should be the top of mind for everybody, it's not going to be.
No. And I think you said it incredibly well. Data is your friend. Don't be afraid of what data is telling you. It opens a door to future marketing opportunities for you.
Absolutely. If you give a lot and ask a little, it makes it so much easier for you to start building a relationship, because people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And when you're in the digital space and your digital avatar of you is not giving out trustworthy information, that's holding everything back, saying, unless you pass this, information wall or this paywall, we're not going to give you anything. That's not very trustworthy. But if you said, like what you're doing right now, you're on a podcast, giving a lot of great content out to the audience. That's how you're building trust.
Right.
And so people know, hey, look, he's giving great stuff, and I can walk away right now and never talk to Ryan again. And I picked up something that was awesome. That's building trust. So then people are like, yeah, actually, I really trust Ryan. I actually want to give him a call.
Right.
Yeah.
And that connection is so important when we think about the digital space, because business owners are great at face-to-face. We're really good at when somebody's in front of us and we're at a networking event or they walked in our store. But man, we've got to think about how do we replicate that in the digital space so that people, they're connecting with that know, like, trust idea, and that we feel as authentic digitally as we do face-to-face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what's one thing that we haven't covered that maybe we should talk about as we're closing up here? What's one thing that people, when they're building out their website, they're considering technologies, they're really ensuring that they have the right offer? What's the one thing we haven't hit?
One thing we haven't hit is the importance of getting a set of outside eyes to look at your content. And I don't just mean hiring someone, but I mean having someone who knows you, knows your business, look at what you're putting out, because they aren't, if there's someone outside of your organization who's not spending 60, 80 hours a week doing what you do, they are going to have a different perspective on the work you do and the solutions that you provide. And oftentimes they can walk in and go, I don't understand this. I know your business, and I don't you lost me in step 3 and 4. I think you need to figure out some articulation. A lot of businesses find it's easiest to hire someone like myself to walk in and do that for them. Mm-hmm. But I find that many business owners are like, I don't really want to spend money on this right now, but I do need someone I trust. And being able to call another business owner, call someone in the community, pick up the list of the Chamber of Commerce and go, I know Ed, I met him at the last event at the Chamber. I need to have Ed look at my stuff because he's talking to similar clients and he may have a different perspective on what I need to be saying to make sure I'm clear in my messaging.
Yeah. And I like the idea that you talked about, people that you trust. It might not necessarily be people that you like, because sometimes people like to surround themselves with people who say yes, right, or say, that's great, dear. That looks amazing. And you don't need that. You need authentic, true feedback, because that's what's really going to give value.
Yep. Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I love the idea of that's BNI groups or anything like this. When you're at the chamber, and you're networking with people and saying, hey, look, do you mind just taking a peek at this? Does this speak to you? And I want you to be very honest, because if you're not, it's not going to help me. Right. And so bold feedback is what I'm looking for.
Yep. And I think someone who's willing to even ask questions of, have you considered?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great cover of the idea of helping people provide clarity for their offers and really hone in on who they serve and where they are. And then how to then translate that into the technology, the websites and the traffic pages that people build, so they can build it with clear intention, with clear call to actions, and then ensuring that they're collecting that data in the right way, and then getting that feedback loop to say, hey, can I get a third party here to look at this to make sure I'm not just, saying that this is the greatest because I put it together.
Right.
That's beautiful, man. I love it. I love it. Now, for people to get a hold of you, because I know that you run the cohort groups, I know you do different things where you just meet with people and have nice sessions where you can just sit down and chat with you for a bit and go through. Best spot to go there is to distillyourstory.com is the easiest spot to reach you there. And it is very clear exactly what you do on the page. And so obviously it's a great thing for people to check out and see how you present yourself.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are quite welcome. And Ryan, we've had nothing but a great talk today and great information, and really appreciate going through all the things around the offers. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is the money. This is the mindset. This is the Mentoring Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.